This video is a replay of a trade I took today. Now, it probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. I am not a financial advisor, and trading entails risk. Just because I got these results today doesn't mean that I can get these every day, nor that you can. Remember, the entire premise of the investing project and the $1 million experiment is that I am not an expert, and yet I am learning how to do this. So for heaven's sake, don't just blindly copy me. Instead, find a mentor, someone who is an expert, and join their community. Pay for their mentorship. This approach has worked very well for me, and it likely will for you too. So use this video partly as education and partly as inspiration. After all, if I can learn this, you can too. Well, I made a profit today, but far cry from what I could have made if I had just stuck to my plan. So I'm going to start by showing you something here. This is a trade that I took, and I took myself out of early on, stupidly. But if you see here, this is the Russell, the M2K. And this is just before the market opened. You could see a pullback here, 1, 2, 3, 4 red bars on the 15-minute, and then a green bar. And this is a perfectly legitimate setup. The only problem is this happened before the market opened. And I don't normally like to trade the first 15 minutes, but today the market had overnight, it sold off so substantially. Let me just adjust this slightly. If you look at this, let's look at the NQ and the ES. This was a huge sell-off from the previous day, and previous days closed, and then overnight, in the overnight session, it just sold off dramatically. It was down like 800 points on the NQ. It was this huge sell-off. So this is where we were to open up. And if you look here now at the one I was just showing you on the, this is the Russell. If you look at the Russell, it had bounced off just below the previous day's low. It bounced off at that area again a third time. That's where we got this green 15-minute candle. This is a pretty reasonable, and it's reasonably close to the ATR low, although not that close, but a lot closer than it was to the high. So if you look at this, the average true range of the Russell, way up here is the high, and way down here is the low, and we're pretty close to that low, in addition to bouncing off the previous day's low. This was a great setup, and I took this, and the nice thing is I can get in with a reasonable amount of risk, and I took this setup. The problem is I've been gun shy recently because the market has really been snapping around and being messy, and I moved my stop to even way too soon and basically took myself out of this trade before it had a chance to work. But I'm going to play this back anyway because this is a useful thing, and it's a good reminder psychologically. Don't, if you put a trade on. So here's the other thing before I finish that thought. Market did open, and it dropped down a fair bit lower, but then recovered and went its merry way. What I was going to say was when you make the decision to get into a trade, you are mentally putting aside the money that you could potentially lose. And you somehow, and I'm saying this to me, I have to remember to forget about that money. It's spent. It's like I've shot that bullet. It's gone. In this case, it's 100 handles, 6 contracts, 50 cents a contract. That is essentially $300. That's a $300 bullet. I've already shot that bullet, and I can forget about it. It's gone now. Either I hit a target or I don't hit a target. But I have to get back into the mindset. And I've started to lose that mindset in the last little while because the market's been frenetic. And I haven't been as disciplined as I should be. But once I fire that bullet, don't go messing with it. Now I'm going to play this, and you'll see what could have been if I'd allowed the trade to just play out the way it would have. Yeah. So there we are. We're in it. 6 contracts of the Russell. Now this is the point at which I was taken out. I'd already moved my stop to even. It retraced, took me out of the trade. Now I'm out of it. But it wasn't done going up. So, if I just stayed in place, what I was doing, it never came down to the level of stopping me out. In fact, even if I moved this up to just shortly below this level here, it never actually took me out. And that was a perfectly legitimate setup. It flirted with it, but it never actually took me out. And of course, by the time it's gotten in, you sometimes say to yourself, well, I'm going to get out if it goes against me, but then I'll get back in. Yeah, really? You never get back in. And then you miss trades like this. Because now I look at this and say, oh, I want to get back in. Well, it's too late. It's already made its move. I don't know whether that was it and it's retracing. Now, you'll see here that after it had moved 100 points in the right direction, 100 ticks in the right direction, it moved both of these stops to break even. And then it trails half of them, 3 of the contracts. It trails 100 points behind the high. And the other 3, it just stays right there at even. Now, if I had done the thing that I espouse doing for myself, which is put my trade on, put the stop in the right place, put the target in the right place, and leave the room, this would have played out while I was merrily doing whatever else I wanted to do in the morning. However, since I didn't do that, I was here managing it, and I managed my way into 0, a big fat goose egg on this particular trade. So if I sound a little annoyed, it's because I'm a little annoyed. So anyway, such is life. So here we are. It's now hit the first target, and it's potted, what, $375? Is that what that is? Something like that. $300. It's $300. And here comes the next one. It's going to make me wait for it. All right. So the total profit here was $750. $750, and I got exactly 0 of it because I was not following the plan. That's frustrating. So that aside, I'm going to stop this for a second. There was another trade that happened today, and it happened at the same time as this, that I did get into because I was not in this Russell, because I'd taken myself out of it. So I'm just going to rewind to the right time here for the entry into this. And that is when I got into the YM. And let me see if I can figure out exactly where that was. And I got into it on the 15-minute again. So where are we at here? I'm going to say right about here. So this candle hasn't closed yet. Let me just slow this down so I don't blow it away. Okay, right here on the 15-minute is where I got in. And so this is again a little bit of a pullback. So this was a huge sell off. Really, the opportunities pre-market were substantial, but then again we had this sort of sell off similar to the Russell, where I had the opportunity here. This was the first green candle, huge wick. This is what alerted me to this huge wick on the 15-minute, and an opportunity to get in just above it. Not as good a setup, obviously, as getting in on this smaller green candle on the Russell, but still a legitimate setup. So I got in on that. And we'll let this go. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'll look at the 5-minute just because it gives me a little bit more detail to work with. Now, what I did here, as a matter of fact, you know what? I might even, can you see? Yeah, you can see the 2-minute as well. All right, so let's keep this going. What I did here, now again, this is another instance where if I had just left this thing alone, I would have made another full deal. But what I ended up doing here was when it pulled back, which is coming up, I'm not exactly sure where I was. I think at this point I was following the 2-minute candles, and I was doing that largely because, again, I was expecting it to snap back on me. So I think I ended up following the 2-minute candles, and that allowed me to lock in some profit on. Yeah, it was right about here. I think it started to pull back. Yeah, right here. So I was able to lock in some profit here, and then it did actually pull back pretty substantially. Now I had been trailing the whole shooting match, so all 6 contracts were out by this point. As a matter of fact, I think I traded only 4 contracts in this one because I wanted to just trade slightly smaller size. I wasn't too thrilled with what was going on in the market. So by this point, I was out completely. And it looked like that was actually a good thing because then it went on to retrace a fair amount. But what's interesting here, if we, let me speed this up a little bit. what's interesting here is it gave another opportunity to get in. So we have one red bar for the 2 minutes and a second one, and now a third one coming up here, I think. So we had an opportunity right here. You got a little bit of a wick, and the opportunity now is this is going to turn into a green candle, and there's an opportunity to get back in on this green candle. So now this is the 2 minute, not the 5 minute, and I don't normally trade on the basis of the 2 minute. However, if we, you know what, just for fun, let's just look at the 5 minute. I'm going to trade this based on getting in on the 5 minute. So let's just do that. And it's counting down. Obviously, if you got in on the 2 minute, you would have got in a little earlier. But here we are on the 5 minute. Even if I'd re-entered on the 5 minute, it still would have been a successful trade. Might not have triggered the entire thing, but let's see. Let's see whether it would have made the full meal ticket here. I actually haven't replayed this, so I'm not sure what it would have done. I know that it did respond fairly well. The frustrating part, of course, is that if I just left this right from the time where that I actually got in, if I'd let that run, that would have been another full $750. But anyway, let's just see what happens. So it's already moved to even, and it's now trailing half the contracts. Let's see what it's going to do here. At some point, I think it turns around and sells off rather heavily, but I'm not quite sure whether that does that before or after the target could have been triggered. Yeah, it looks like it's going to sell off. Maybe not. All right, so it's out and it's locked in. I don't know if that was like $90, something like that. And now what is it going to do? Is it? It's not quite clear to me whether it's going to go down and stop out even for the balance. It may, because I know the market sold off pretty heavily. A little bit like watching paint dry. It does seem like doesn't really seem like this is 1,000 times speed. But I'm curious to see what's going to happen here. Well, in any case, today I think what my grand total on that first little excursion there was I think $154. That was on 4 contracts of the YM. Not exactly inspiring considering that 750 was on the menu, but oh well. It's not really oh well. I actually have to get into the headspace of setting aside mentally the $300 I've put at risk and not be playing out of fear of losing. That's actually a really important distinction. All right, and we're out. Okay, so essentially that's getting back in would have given you about $100 on that set of contracts. Not that much, and certainly, but getting in. Since we're here, I don't know if you're interested or not. You can always bail, but I'm going to go back to when I actually got in the first time and just run it. Let me see if I can find the right time here. And I'm going to run this uh, on when I was watching this morning. Uh, I was looking here at the 5 minute, and I was looking at this wick and thinking, it might be time to get in on this 5 minute here. And so let me just see what happens if I play this back and actually get in on that one that I was considering. Because at this point it's 6:41 Pacific time. When this candle closes, it'll be 6:45. So this is it's a nice candle for sure. It's kind of been in this zone. Okay, so here we are. So right now, that is essentially where I would get in. So I'll put this in, say right there. And let's just go ahead and get in and let's see whether in fact. Now, what's interesting here is I would have had to take quite a lot more risk. I would have had to put this down here. So I would have been more than double the risk. And that's the reason I sized down to 4 contracts. But in any case, what I'm curious about is whether this would have been a full meal deal here for 750 or not on 6 contracts. It just helps me to understand more about what it is that I gave up by not being disciplined. Okay, so this took me out of one of the trailing one. It took me out pretty early on, and so it took me out for both of them right from the get-go. Well, that's interesting. Okay, I didn't realize that it had done that. So even though I was trailing this by going to the various different 2-minute candles, I actually did better having done that than just allowing it to take me out. I made $154 on 4 contracts. This took me out at $68.50 total on 6 contracts. So I actually did better on this trade by following the 2-minute bars. I guess really in retrospect, I'm more frustrated with the Russell trade because that one, that one I knew enough. I was in the trade and I just moved my stop up and allowed myself to be taken out of the trade. So anyway, I'm digesting that and hopefully it will smarten up for tomorrow.